I run these educational programs, and then I'm simultaneously working within communities where I'm able to disperse this information. A lot of people don't understand what more is because it's been so convoluted, So that's really how it works. I also have a website where I give out this information, and I have a podcast as well. It's called the More Podcast, where you get to get a lot of this information. And yeah, so that's what we do.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting. I understand that you also do a lot of work within the area of Afro-Consciousness, right?
Yeah, that's a part of my.
And I think you have a book that is, yeah, please go.
Yeah, I have a that's what my curriculum is based off of developing African consciousness and trying to get that within the minds of other Africans when I'm meeting them. So when I meet someone that's like nearly against saying that they're African, I'm like, oh, hold up, brother, hold up, sister, like let's go through this together. Let's see if I can bring you to the dark side a little bit. And we go over as to how those negative thoughts even were created and try to bring them out of that, right? And it may take a lot of time. Like sometimes when you give people a certain type of information they're not ready for, then they'll just totally reject it, but at least you planted a seed. And that's kind of the concept as to the work I'm doing. Even when I have young people join my program, a lot of times they're not ready for the information I'm giving them, but at least I planted a seed. So it'll always be there, I'm also working on a manuscript currently, which I'm in the process of publishing, it's called Hierarchical Assimilation, Play the Game. And it's on basically African people assimilating into this white hierarchical structure, and how it, as we assimilate, how it starts to strip away of our cultural identity and what that can do. So I talk about that, and then I also talk about the solutions to creating our own communities and building our own empowerment centers for each other and becoming our own agencies for each other as well. But it's going to be different volumes that I create, but this is the first one that I am in the process of publishing.
Let's go back to where it all began. You were born in Washington DC, right? Say you could turn back the hand of time. This is today that you were born, growing up. What would you want to be taught about Africa?
Growing up, well, what I would want to be taught about Africa is just the realities. I think that I would want to really get a better picture as to the state that the African people are in, as far as as far as being like frankly told that we're in an unseen and unheard of war. We're in a war that people can't recognize because people are so comfortable in the states that they're in. People are so comfortable on their phones that they don't see all the different mechanisms as to how their people are being killed in various ways or being oppressed in various ways, and we oftentimes forget. So I would want that to be addressed to me at a younger age, so I could have spent more time trying to identify solutions for that. I think oftentimes we're teaching our children in obliviousness, and I don't think that that's the right thing to do. And also being able to have my children and other children connect at a younger age to on the continent, to be able to understand the culture, and vice versa, being able to have the children on the continent be able to connect with people within the diaspora, whether that's them getting outside of the continent. But I think that's really important. Traveling is a human right. It's a humane right for us to be able to travel and be able to explore and be able to learn, right? So I think that's a big one, and being able to have that exposure to debunk a lot of negative stereotypes that exist is also something else that would be really important at a really young age.
All right. Regarding cultural storytelling, which is the thing that we have discussed today, what do you think African diaspora should be concentrating on in order to reawaken our history, to retell our story actually? What do you think we should be concentrating on the more?
I think that we should concentrate on um, teaching each other what we know about our history and about our own stories, right? Like being open to this idea of communalism, and as it pertains to sharing who we are, where we come from, and what our solutions are towards. I think that's really, really important. And then also, like, people have different mechanisms to get to the end goal, like embracing those mechanisms, but trying to throw away this individualistic mindset of, oh no, this is my story, or no, this is my project, this is what I'm doing. You know, like we can only thrive if we thrive together. So I think that's something that needs to be reiterated in this space of cultural storytelling with each other. Like it's doesn't work if you don't have this Ubuntu mindset. I am because we are.
That is true. I am because we are. All right. Um, in this course of the journey that you are in, you are in a lot of things. You are in business, you are in research, you are in storytelling, you are organizing people. You are also trying to inspire children to believe in themselves in terms of knowing who they are, where they're coming from. Do you want to tell me that you have some challenges or is it all free flow for you?
Oh, yes. I think with everything you have challenges, but with this one, it's a huge challenge because you have to think like excuse me, um the people on in the Americas have a different type of mental bondage than the people on the continent. It has the same root, but it's different. It shows up in different forms. So that's a challenge to work with, and it's disheartening to work with sometimes because it shows you how much work you have to do, but you can't do it alone. You have to do it with the community. But sometimes seeing the effects on the psyche of African people is, it hurts you. It gets you to your soul because I see people as my reflection. So when I see someone suffering, um it deeply impacts me. And then also seeing people's helplessness, like believing that there's no hope for the African or that the African continent or the African communities. I get that a lot. You know, some people just have no hope whatsoever because they see how bad things are and they feel like the only thing is to accept it, right? So I get a lot of that. It's a lot that goes into it. But the helplessness, I don't tolerate. I don't tolerate that. I don't tolerate that we can't do it, or it won't happen, or it's impossible, or it won't happen in our lifetime, because it's like that mindset is the reason why it won't happen, because you have that mindset. You've already decided to give up. Imagine if you didn't, right? And imagine if people didn't. Imagine if all of us didn't. That's who our ancestors were. They weren't giving up. That's how we are existing as we speak. That's how we're able to speak with each other, because they didn't give up, right? So how dare we give up, you know? So
I love that. Thank you, sister. I like that. That is very important. All right. Now, I want you to tell us about your strength in that despite all these challenges, you are not giving up. You are still fighting. You are going on. What is encouraging you? I mean, what is inspiring you despite all?
I think it's the vision I have. I'm a very visionary person, and I see the community that I plan on living in, and I believe in the power of manifestation. I believe in um my higher power. I believe in my ancestors. I believe in a lot of different things. And honestly, I feel like a lot of the work that I'm doing and a lot of the work that I found is navigated to me from God and from God and you know, God's children, essentially, who are my ancestors. So I feel like that is what's really pushing me forward and keeping me going. It has put me in all the different experiences that I've gone through, and it's a blessing. And it makes me live a life of blissfulness despite all the challenges.
All right. Now, what would be your final statement? Because we've talked about a lot of important things today. Talk about what you do. Talk about you, where you are coming from. What would be a final statement from the conversation? Maybe something you wanted to say I didn't ask you, or a kind of a conclusion, or a kind of a message. Please go ahead.
Okay, my final statement would be to everyone that the struggle continues, as in we are in war. Know that we are in war. See the war. identify the war alongside with the enemy and unify with each other, mobilize with each other, and let's get to it. Let's work. We have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of strategizing to do. We have a lot of organizing to do.
All right. So I want to thank you so much for the time. It has been a pleasure on my part.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this.
You're welcome.